Welcome everyone to the showdown between the Vampire Coast, who shall be led by Foot Luther. And today, my friends, we face off against the Proud Dawi, who shall be led by a Rune Lord. And it does also look like there is going to be a Thane. Now, as far as this build goes, it's a slight modification of my usual build against Dwarfs. So what I normally do is get 4 cannons, basically spread them out across the map, use them to kind of pull the Dwarves apart. And if the Dwarves do go with like 2 or 3 cannons, usually your 4 carronades are able to take them out and get the advantage, especially if you're using Scurvy Dogs and Fellbats and some different tools to, of course, harass the Dwarven gun line there. So in total, we got 4 cannons in the back to try and put some pressure and force the Dwarves out of their typical defensive positions, because with Coast, advancing into the Dwarves is a little bit tricky. Mourngulls get taken out by Slayers. The Rangers are very cost-effective against your Mourngulls. Depth Guard can do okay, but again, are very susceptible to being focus-fired. Granted, I still think probably the most meta way to deal with the Dwarves is like a Mourngull rush with like Count Noctilus and then using a bunch of backline harass with Scurvy Dogs and things like that. But this is a build, if your opponent doesn't know it's coming, can be pretty damn strong. So normally, of course, I have a much bigger front line. Here, of course, we have Zombie Power Deckhand mobs. We have more Deckhand mobs over here, but I opted to cut 2 of them and get 2 Bloaty Thick Boys. So this actually took place in my stream, and it was such a fun game I wanted to show you guys. So we have 2 Bloated Corpses. We have one here and one on the far side as well, and I'm kind of like, you know, if I can focus down the Dwarven missiles and then use the Bloaty Boys to actually take out Longbeards and cost-effective, strong Dwarven infantry, that would be great. So in total, we have 2 of the Bloated Corpses. In the back, we do have Mourngulls. Mourngulls are sweeper units, so I don't use them in the rush. Basically, when some of the Dwarven units do trickle past my defenses, I pull the Mourngulls and I use them to countercharge the Dwarven infantry and kind of just clean up your backline. Because right now, you know, as far as the Dwarves can see, it looks like my backline is completely undefended. So they might want to send something back here like a Gyrocopter or even, you know, some Vanguard units, and then the Mourngulls can pop up and surprise them. Over here on the flank, I think we have some Scurvy Dogs as well. So Scurvy Doggos here and here. And with builds like this, it's very important that you're running interference, because if you're not, they just get to advance for free, and basically you're going to have a pretty bad time. So having 2 groups of Scurvy Dogs and some Fellbats to harass Gyrocopters is very good. Granted, Gyro builds aren't very good against my build because I have quad cannons, which annihilate Gyrocopters. Now in the front, I have 2 zombies, and to kind of halt my opponent's advance, I do have a Gunnery White plus Luther Harkin on foot. He's actually pretty good on foot. His missile damage is incredible, 577. I believe he has some sort of armor sundering or something. I can't quite remember, but no, actually, physical resist he disrupts, which is still really good. So basically, you have Luther on foot, you have the Gunnery White as a sniper, and if the cannons, of course, become an issue in the late game, he can give them extra ammunition with the extra powder. Very, very strong, but you can snipe Dwarf Lords, you can snipe characters, you can shoot gyros. It basically is just an interference piece here. In the back, 1 group of Depth Guard just for sustained combat, and they actually do very well against Dwarves. Depth Guard against Longbeards, Miners, any number of Dwarf infantry, except maybe like Hammerers. They can fight really long and actually out-trade them very, very efficiently. So I do like the Depth Guard. Just having 1 group in the back, again, in a safe position, I think is pretty cost effective. Now for the Dawi here in the front, it's going to be Miners with blasting charges, Rangers as well, Bugman's Rangers, regular Rangers. I think it's a mix of both. Rangers are very good. They can put huge firepower onto my gunnery mobs with better range, and they're also quite effective against, you know, just my bigger targets like Mourngulls. The big armored crab, of course, could be a little bit tricky to bring down, but usually Dwarves will have enough firepower to bring down your big crabs. And here in the back, just in case I brought like a Leviathan, he does also have the Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes. So he's pretty well safe against the big threats here. But yeah, just Miners across the sunset. Rangers, he does have some layering of Slayers. So 1 here and 1 here. Looks like some Longbeards on the flank to screen out the Scurvy Doggos, a Rune Lord, and a Gyrocopter, which is all taken, wow, a lot of damage since we started commentating here with the cannons, and that is it. So let's get this show on the road, guys, and see if we can find a home for those nice bloats. So right here, basically, I am going to be sending in the Fellbats as well as the Rangers. I know the most important thing in this matchup is to get rid of his range tools. Otherwise, like Luther and my Crab can be shot, so just putting it all in resources to try and take these guys out, I think is quite strong. In the meantime, the Gunnery White with its long rifle, shooting into the Thane, able to get some good damage, and Luther Harkin's trying to come in as well. Now, he doesn't have like Thunders or other troops like that can really punish me, so I basically feel safe going in and just kind of poking. I mean, I can, for the most part, dodge the Bugman's Rangers and other troops. So the cannons, I think 2 of them are shooting into the Iron Drakes, but he did fall back, so now we're going to be shooting downtown into his missile pieces. So we're going to be shooting into the Rangers, like I said, very, very important stuff. So Luther, I also do use him to eat the blasting charges from some of the Miners here, but my opponent is able to get 2 charges here against the Zombies. Zombies do have 23 speed against his 28, so he was able to close the distance. Granted, I should have fallen back, but a little bit of micro misplay on my part. So here in the front, we are able to pull some of these Miners a little bit away. So Luther is going to be charging in, pointing his sword here at the Dawi. He's got his pistol, so he will be shooting that as well. Granted, I think I told him not to shoot. More blasting charges coming into the Zombies here, and now we are going to be engaging. But the Slayers aren't going to be terribly effective against Luther on foot because, again, he's not a large threat. So I'm opting to take this fight. I have zombies here, and I do also have my Vampire Caster and my Depth Guard, which I believe are back here. And they're going to be coming up to kind of lend their swords to this fight here, and also some summons for the Slayers. Now in the back, the Gyrocopter is coming back here. 2 cannons have been trained on the Gyro, and I had a feeling he was going after one of my Bloaty boys. So this Bloat is going to be running across the map, trying to stay away from the Gyrocopter, which can basically just one-shot them and get some pretty good value. And even if the Gyros do land here, I have the Morngulls, so very, very secure in this position. Now in the back line, my Scurvy Dogs have been fended off. We did some really lethal damage to these Rangers, actually. And Luther Harkin a little bit trapped up, actually, by a bunch of Slayers and Miners. Miners do, of course, have decent AP values, but the Slayers still hurt nonetheless. But Luther, again, on foot, isn't going to suffer from the bonus versus large issue in that matchup here. So we will be bringing in the Vampire Fleet Captain. I figured it's pretty cost-effective for Luther to tarp hit 3 full units. And it's kind of an issue a lot of Dwarves have. When they face off against builds like this, they don't advance. They kind of try and out-trade you, but had the Dwarves just advanced sooner with all of their missile pieces, I would be in a much more kind of stressed out position, to say the least. So cannons still shooting in, just focusing down the Rangers. It looks like one Ranger here in very, very precarious shape, taking a lot of cannons to the face. It does add up over time. And now some of the Dwarves got through and they think they're home free, right? They're charging, there's a cannon back here, it looks like they're going to get a ton of value, at the very least force me to use my Bloated Corpse, but this is where the Morngulls come in. These guys lie in waiting, they pop out, and they're able to screen your backline very effectively. And of course, Dwarves are not the swiftest of people, so you're able to get some pretty good picks in open field. So here come the Morngulls charging into the Miners. This is going to be an absolute massacre, just sandwiched between Morngulls and deckhand mobs. Things are getting pretty crazy. So here, of course, we have the Depth Guard that are going to be pushing forward now. There are some Rangers that can shoot them. Depth Guard do have 90 armor, so they're somewhat durable against kind of bolts, not bolt fire, but bows and things like that. But still taking huge damage. Depth Guard are a relatively squishy unit, but I felt like this was worth it. They would be able to at least get in combat with Longbeards and start fighting here, or get on top of the Bugman's Rangers and really take those guys apart. So one group of Scurvy Dogs has crumbled on the edge of the map. Here, I do kind of fall back a little bit. He comes in with his characters. Now, this is a bit of a dangerous play for sure, because Luther's very strong. The Vampire Fleet Captains are incredibly strong as well. We have Hornswoggle, and also the Gunnery Wight on the Crab will not only shoot his long rifle, if I'm not mistaken, but the Crab is also a very good armor-piercing combatant. So you can see here in this situation, Hornswoggle has gone down. Luther Harkin getting in there and getting all crazy on these Dwarves, while the summons coming down from the Vampire Fleet Captain are able to tarp hit the advance of the Dawi forces. In the back, the Doggos were also able to get on the Iron Drakes with the Trollhammer torpedoes. And basically now all of his other missile pieces are compromised, so I get all 4 cannons, I train them here on the Bugman's Rangers, and they're able to get some massive value. So for the first time in the game, we do pull ahead on the bounce part, and here comes the Bloat. Oh, brutal damage! I'm so glad I was looking that way. I couldn't quite remember, but the Bloated Corpse comes in and basically one-shots the Longbeards. I mean, they're very good leadership, so they do hold, but that was 100% worth it. Longbeards cost 800 gold, give or take, and the Bloaty Boy is able to pretty much nuke them off the battlefield, which gives me really good tools here, because otherwise, you know, they would have been able to kill deckhand mobs, push back onto my carronades, and it would be a stressful, very, very stressful situation. So here, of course, the Rune Lord is pushed off. You can see the other Thane in a bit of a pickle here, to say the least, being turned into a crab sandwich here. So Gunnery Wight and Luther Harkin go fisticuffs, and now the Thane is looking like he's going to get taken to town. Luther, even though he doesn't have the best AP in his melee attacks, his pistol shots are going off at the same time and doing huge damage, and also the Morngulls in the back line are sweeping quite effectively, which means all my cannons are online, I'll have pretty good ammo. There is another Bloat coming in, so I'll make sure now to make a huge emphasis on watching this Bloat here, and I believe my cannons are still shooting into the Bugman's Rangers. Granted, at some point I will be switching onto the Iron Drakes, because each cannon, you know, it's a low model count unit, so you're generally going to get good value there. And the Depth Guard, I think, are still fighting. They're still doing okay. And Miners here, of course, being cleaned up. Longbeards have buckled under the armor-piercing anti-infantry pressure here of the Morngulls, and Zombies are holding back a tide of Miners and just kind of a chaff infantry here, a couple Slayers as well. And the Vampire Fleet Captain is also doing a very good job tarp hitting these forces. Now the Dwarf Lord is on the run. The Rune Lord has come back here. He's at 48 leadership. He is stabilizing, so basically I'm going to be saturating into the Iron Drakes, trying to take them out, at which point I will be switching some of my cannons to take out the Rune Lord here, and just try and make sure there's no anchor for the Dwarves to fall back on. Back on the front line fighting, Dwarves are buckling here in this position. The Morngulls, I thought about sending them up and around the back to try and clean up here, but some of the Dwarves were able to get past my line here, and even a single Miner here could make a huge difference in the game. They would be able to kill the carronades. I don't really have anything else that's fast enough to catch them, so the Morngulls are going to fall back here, while the Depth Guard do chase off the other threats in my back line, and these Miners with blasting charges. Looks like a couple loose Longbeards or maybe Slayers doing their thing here. And the Bloated Corpse, oh, did we miss it? Oh no, we missed it, I think. Okay, so what ended up happening, maybe I'll try and edit it back after the fact, but nonetheless, the Bloated Corpse came, and like these 14 Longbeards here, they were like just super tattered, like literally like 2 of them set off the Bloated Corpse, so it's not a big deal, we don't need to really focus on it. Basically, the Longbeards just owned me, and I didn't get the value there with that Bloaty Boy. nonetheless here, the Rune Lord getting focused down by the cannon fire. Brutal AP value coming in from these guys. I mean, 450 range, 212, really, really strong stuff. And Luther, Harkin, and company here are able to peel off the last of the Dwarven troops that are advancing, of course, and it's looking pretty grim bones here for the Dwarves. There are some Slayers, but I just have too much stuff. I have a ton of zombies left. I have plenty of Winds of Magic. I have 3 very powerful heroic characters. And, you know, honestly, you could kite the Slayers as well. Just pull them apart, shoot them with cannons, and they're going to have a pretty bad time. I think I even have some Depth Guard left. Yeah, in the back, Depth Guard are coming in. And Depth Guard on paper are very much a hard counter to the Dwarven Slayers. So at this point, it's a bit of a grind fest. It's basically just fighting the Slayers to the bitter end. And honestly, if we kind of look at the game and kind of take a moment to reflect, the Dwarven build certainly wasn't bad, and I think it had some teeth against what I brought. But the issue is that his advance was very stifled. He wasn't able to get up the field quickly, and a lot of people just kind of, Dwarf players especially, are so used to sitting still and just kind of playing that missile attrition trade. But if they bring 4 cannons, you need to advance on them. You need to put that pressure and try and force past them to the best of your abilities. And that's really how you deal with a build like that. So looking at the build again, let's go ahead and do a bit of a reflection here. I'd probably cut the Thane. I don't really think he's necessary. I do love the blasting charges. I like the Longbeards as well. They're very good choices. You can even opt to go for like standard Dwarf Warriors. Slayers are good. Bugman's Rangers are good. Honestly, this build has a lot of good tools. I would cut the Gyrocopter because Fellbats are very common. The Iron Drakes with Trollhammer Torpedoes aren't a bad choice, actually. I think like having one of those does keep the Vampire Coast honest as it pertains to crabs and different things like that. And, Trollhammer Torpedoes can be game-winning units. So really the build is quite good. But if you cut the Thane, you cut the Gyrocopter here, and maybe cut down the one Longbeard, just get like some Dwarf Warriors, cut down some blasting charges here, and get some one Thunder. That'd be really nice as well, just to give you some direct fire to really kind of harass my crabs and different things like that. And then you just advance. You gotta be more aggressive for sure. And I think that was the biggest issue because he played well in many respects, but sitting back and letting the cannons do their thing for that long, and yeah, of course I'll be able to sweep up some stuff, but if your Dwarf force moves forward in a very unified state, like the very first moment of that game, like as soon as the game started, had he seen the 4 cannons moved up aggressively on a small map like that, I would have a lot of trouble defending those cannons, like hardcore. And often, even getting a 3rd Slayer could be really strong. So you could cut like the Gyrocopter and cut the Chevrons and get a 3rd Slayer. Slayers are really, really tough for the Vampire Coast to deal with. So that would be my 2 cents. So yeah, well played. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Vampire Coast vs. Dwarf game. You got to see some Bloat action, a little bit of Foot Luther, always a good time. And again, well played to my opponent, Quailinator. He was on the stream after the game, so pleasure playing against you, man. We actually got to play twice. Some fun games for sure. So again, next time you're in that situation against Vampire Coast, I would recommend advancing a little bit quicker. Granted, if the Coast is doing a rush build, you can just sit and defend all day. That's classic Dwarves. But if someone comes in with a cannon build like that, you're not going to be able to outtrade them with a force like that. And yeah, again, cut the Gyrocopter in my opinion, and maybe, cut 1 Longbeard, get some Dwarf Warriors as a replacement, and get a single Thunderer unit. They're really good. Even 2. I mean, yeah, you could even keep the Bugman's Rangers or keep the regular Rangers, cut these guys, get 2 Dwarven guns. Having the extra AP against crabs and the direct fire is really, really strong against characters like Luther Harkin. Because if they have Luther up in the sky or something, the Bugman's Rangers aren't going to be able to do much. He'll basically just fly over your head and do as he pleases. But if you have Thunders with the direct fire, it can be really nasty. As a matter of fact, let's go put a build together, and that'll be a little bit more helpful, I think. So, custom battles here. We're going to do it. Dwarves. And honestly, there's a couple choices. I'm a huge fan of Gromby, too. The Flash Bomb's really good, and he can also, go fisticuffs with the best of them. So I do love the blasting charges. I think having a couple of them is quite good. You can honestly have a couple Dwarf Warriors as well. You don't really need, good infantry in this matchup, and Dwarf Warriors, for the cost, can perform very well. So maybe 2 missile pieces here. We'll get a couple regular Rangers, and suddenly, you got a pretty good little firing line, and obviously their troop quality isn't quite as good. Dragonback Slayers, 2 regular Slayers as backline sweepers. And you can play the cannon game, but honestly, some Vampire Coast rush builds will basically just drop summons on top of your cannons, and it's kind of like a clunky thing. So I feel like just going for a build like this is a little bit more cost effective, and look how much money you still have. So from here, you can get 2 more Longbeards to get some good troop quality here. Those guys, of course, will be a very, very good kind of meaty dude. We have 4. We could even go for 4 Rangers. It's a lot to protect, but again, if you're up to the task of it, it can be pretty damn strong. And then you get 2 of these. This build would be pretty tough for Vampire Coast to deal with. You don't have slows in the form of I mean, yeah, you could, I guess, get a Runesmith that's really stripped down as well. But give this build a try. Maybe cut these guys and get a Runesmith. I mean, if you strip them down all the way, you almost have enough here. And Gromby, what can we cut? And basically, Grombrindle, you just need the Flash Bomb. I don't know about the Runesmith, though. I mean, the Rune of Wrath and Rune's decent here. I mean, but like Morngulls and things like that, I guess being able to slow them isn't bad. Like, slowing characters like Luther is very strong as well. Yeah, I think doing that's probably pretty good. And from here, so this will be kind of the front line here. The Longbeards and Dwarf Warriors mixed together. We have Blasting Charges, backline defense. We have 3 Slayers. And I mean, you could even like opt to cut one of these guys and get like a Trollhammer Torpedo if you want to. That's going to be pretty good if that's like kind of your playstyle, and then you just get a couple miners to kind of wrap things up. So you have the bows to outtrade their guns, you have the direct fire with the thunders to deal with crabs and Morgulls, and you also have some serious firepower. So like, and also I think this could be quite helpful. We'll go into deployment here. So we'll go into the sort of Torgald, for example, or we'll just do like a flat map actually, so you can see. So MP Alpine Ridge or Crossroads is a good one to test, and obviously you dump the chevrons in wherever you want. And I'll show you a little bit of a deployment pattern here for the Dawi. The Runesmith is like optional. I think having like slows against like big single entity beat sticks is always helpful too. So I do see the value of having a Runesmith. Plus it's another heroic character that can fight. We're not, of course, going to fight Malagor and company. So here you are. You're in your deployment. For the front line, you can basically just have something like this. Aha, I can see the Beastmen. It's kind of cheating, right? Even in a custom battle, why would I be able to see them? Maybe it's like ambush type or something. Blasting charges will be offset in the front a little bit, kind of like this. And those guys, of course, will be your frontal hammer. Have the Thunderers here, have a group right here. And then the Rangers, can kind of be on the outskirts a little bit, like this, and they can deal with most threats, of course. And the Trollhammer Torpedoes can be like right in the center. And then basically between all your units, the Slayers are here, other Slayers right here, and other Slayers right here. So you have like a unit of Slayers that can bounce in any direction and help out. And then on the far flanks, you can put the miners. So basically, you're pretty well covered. It's micro intensive for sure if they rush you, but it can be done for sure. You have plenty of Slayers to intercept Morgulls. You have miners as kind of a screen on the flank. You have Grombrindle in the center, and the Runesmith Smith can be here. Gromby can be like here. So basically, it's a pretty tough build for the Vampire Coast to deal with, in my opinion. They can rush in, but you have Slayers like, how can I get the Sharpie up? I always forget when I'm in this moment here. But these Slayers can rush this direction. They can rush this direction. These guys can go either way and flow. These guys can go either way and flow. You have a lot of extra screening. Honestly, you might not need this much in the front lines. You could send like the 2 Longbeards forward and pull the Dwarf Warriors back into more of a reserve position, and just defend. And you have ample tools to defend with, and pretty good punch for sure. And again, just advance if they have a build like that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this game plus the breakdown, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Take care.